Sorry, but we've already left while I was using the bathroom at the rest stop. Luke called me, and I was surprised because it was an odd time. When I answered, I heard Luke and his family laughing loudly. I asked what was going on, and he told me something shocking. They were all going to have fun together, and I could go back home and clean or something. I was really looking forward to this trip, even though I had some doubts about traveling with Luke's family. I was excited about staying in a fancy hotel. I felt really hurt and betrayed that he would leave me alone at a rest stop like that. Despite feeling angry, I replied calmly, saying it was okay, but I couldn't forgive him. Today was not just any day. It was our wedding anniversary and my birthday. And we had planned this trip together. He'll regret this. My name is Lucy Mitchell. I'm 33 years old and I'm a housewife. Luke is my husband. We got married exactly 1 year ago on my birthday. Luke is romantic and he always loved celebrating our special days. He grew up in a wealthy family, so he's used to grand celebrations. Luke's family owns a big company and they're really rich. Luke sometimes acts a bit spoiled, but I know he loves me. We met through a matchmaking agency. I almost gave up, but luckily Luke liked me too. I wasn't just interested in his money. I wanted a real relationship. After we got married, we started our life together in a small apartment. But Luke wanted a bigger house. But I disagreed. Even though Luke's family was rich, a big apartment seemed unnecessary for just the two of us. I suggested we live in a place that matched our budget for now, since we could always move later if we wanted. But living in the city was expensive, and I felt guilty about the $1,200 rent. Don't worry about it, Luke said. My dad will take care of it. Even though Luke was the heir to Mitchell Securities, I thought there would be some fairness for other employees. I wondered if this was really okay, but the next month, his salary went up by $500. Your dad's amazing, I said. Being able to raise your salary like that. It was time for a raise anyway, Luke replied. I won't let you face any hardships, Lucy. Count on me. Even though Luke relied on his father's influence for money, I was grateful for the raise and didn't question it. By the way, I'm having dinner with my parents today, Luke said. Just a family dinner, not business. Wait, like a regular dinner? I asked. Yeah, nothing special, Luke said. I should be back by 10. Take care. It was unexpected. Even after marrying me, Luke casually mentioned dining with his parents on a regular evening. I felt caught off guard. Usually, as his wife, I'd be invited too. Not that I wanted a free meal, but building a good relationship with my in-laws was important. I couldn't understand Luke's actions and started feeling uneasy about our marriage. After that dinner incident, Luke frequently went to his parents' house for reasons like, "It's my cousin's birthday," or "Mom asked me to come over." Being a new bride, I just nodded, thinking it was normal. But one day, when I had dinner with a friend and Luke was absent, she looked surprised. He goes home that often and leaves you behind for a cousin's birthday. That's crazy, she said. She had been married for 5 years and had more experience than me. Realizing her reaction was common, I felt embarrassed. You're right, it's weird, I admitted. But according to Luke, it was normal. Don't take this the wrong way, but hasn't he really grown up yet? My friend asked. Her comment hit me hard. It was unusual for a 35-year-old, even one set to take over his dad's business, to prioritize family events after getting married. I regretted not recognizing Luke's true nature before marrying him. When I returned home after dinner with my friend, I felt down. I'm home, Lucy. Where have you been? Luke's mother asked from the living room. Luke was apparently out, maybe at a convenience store. Why are you here? Weren't you and Luke supposed to dine out tonight? I asked. That got canceled due to some issue at the restaurant, she explained. I thought Luke had messaged you just a bit ago, didn't you check? She pointed out. I looked at my phone, and indeed, 10 minutes ago, Luke had messaged that he'd be home early. But that was just about when I got off the train. There's no way I could have gotten home and started dinner in such a short time. Yes, he did message, But I saw it just now, I explained. What the heck? This is the problem with kids from single-parent households. You can tell they weren't raised right. My mother-in-law's words stabbed me in the heart. Indeed, I was raised in a single mother's home. After my mom gave birth to me, my father passed away due to an illness. Despite that, my mother did her best to raise me lovingly. I wish she wouldn't say things that belittled my mother's hard work. It has nothing to do with being raised by a single parent. I just hadn't seen the message yet, I retorted, clearly irritated. But she brushed off my comment and changed the subject. Well, anyway, I've always noticed this, but your house is quite small, she said. I think it's average. It's suitable for just the two of us, I replied. You can't be serious. I feel sorry for Luke living in such a cramped space. My interactions with my mother-in-law continue to stress me out. Both my mother-in-law and father-in-law, perhaps because of their wealth, often seemed condescending. That's why I never got along with them. Realizing further conversation was futile, I silently started preparing dinner. Ignoring me, she went on and turned on the TV. From that day, she started dropping by unexpectedly more often. Even my father-in-law came along a couple of times. Mostly, they'd complain about how dirty the kitchen was or how cramped the house felt. Eventually, they'd sarcastically suggest, "You know, we have a bigger house. Why not move in?" I absolutely didn't want that. I firmly declined every time. They always visited when Luke wasn't home, so he didn't know about their snide remarks. I once talked to him about it, but his reply was, "Why not? Why is living together a bad idea?" I was dismayed when he too suggested moving in. From then on, I realized there was no point in discussing it with Luke, and I endured on my own. Soon, we'll be celebrating our first wedding anniversary, which also happens to be my birthday. For your birthday this weekend, I'm thinking of celebrating more grandly than last year. After all, it's also our anniversary, Luke said as he came home tipsy from work. Seeing his flushed face, I couldn't be sure of his sincerity. Knowing his love for celebrations, I felt a hint of excitement. "Last year, you treated me to a delicious dinner, which was more than enough," I replied. "That's nothing compared to what I've planned. Let's go on a family trip," Luke said. A family trip. The term sounded odd for just the two of us. Noticing my confusion, Luke continued, "My parents, cousins, uncles, and all will join. We're heading to a luxury resort in Palm Springs." "All those people? And why Palm Springs?" I asked. "Got a problem with a family trip, or is it Palm Springs you're not keen on?" Luke replied, "No, it's not that. Honestly, I couldn't understand why my birthday and our anniversary would involve his family. I couldn't understand Luke's thinking. He had nothing to do with either occasion. I've always known he's a bit out of touch with the general populace, but I hadn't expected this level of disparity. While the choice of Palm Springs puzzled me a bit, it wasn't a major issue. Sounds fun, right, Lucy? Sometimes you gotta let loose and enjoy, Luke said, grabbing my shoulders in his intoxicated state. I found myself nodding in agreement. For the next week, I couldn't get the trip out of my mind. At first, I was skeptical about going with his entire family, but as Luke said, it's a rare vacation and I should make the most of it. During the trip preparations, I noticed my growing excitement, and a genuine smile crept onto my face. I knew my in-laws would probably make snide remarks as usual, but I vowed to ignore them completely. Finally, the awaited Saturday arrived. Luke and I headed to his parents' house, our meeting point for the trip. "Well, Lucy, you're late, aren't you? Do you even realize you're the star today?" My mother-in-law was quick to throw shade in front of the assembled family, but it seemed she did realize that I was supposed to be the star, so it took the edge off her words a bit. "I'm sorry, there was traffic," I said, "but excuses won't do. We should leave soon. Otherwise, we'll be late to our luxury resort," she insisted. Despite their grumbling about our tardiness, it was tolerable. After all, they'd been making such remarks throughout the past year. Luke's cousin appeared much younger than him, looking to be in his early 20s, with a sinister look in his eyes. I began to wonder if everyone in this family was mean-spirited. My paranoia was somewhat justified when he made a belittling comment, but I decided not to react. I'm so excited. I've been to luxury resorts multiple times, but tonight's place costs $1,000 per person, my mother-in-law said, shocking me. Suddenly, I had a thought. No way could it be. I climbed into my in-law's car, and once my father-in-law hit the gas, the car swiftly started moving. From here to our Palm Springs destination would take about 2 hours. We decided to take a short break at the next rest stop. About an hour into our journey, I excused myself to the restroom. I'll be right back, I said. As I headed to the restroom, I felt the weight of everyone's eyes on me. Taking a deep breath inside the bathroom stall, I felt relieved that the trip had been relatively uneventful so far. Just as I was settling into that thought, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Luke's name on the display. Expecting him to ask me to pick something up, I casually answered the call. I'm still in the restroom, Luke, I said. With what sounded like amusement, Luke replied, sorry, but we've already left. Today's trip is just for the Mitchell family. It's a pity, but you'll have to stay behind. Goodbye. I was stunned, and laughter echoed from their side. What do you mean? I asked, but there was a moment of silence before Luke hung up. It was unbelievable. I had been eagerly anticipating this trip for a long time. Although the idea of Luke's family joining us was a bit worrying, the prospect of staying at a luxury hotel had me excited. But now, they had left me alone at the rest area. I was trembling inside the restroom stall, feeling utterly betrayed. Trying to hide my anger, I responded lightly with an okay, but this was unforgivable. Today was our wedding anniversary and my birthday, and they brought me on this trip. I'll make them regret this. After leaving the restroom, I called someone. The person on the other end was shocked and shared some astonishing news. I asked if it was true, and they confirmed. Then, they promised to come pick me up. Left alone at the rest area like this was unbearable. Praying for a timely rescue, an hour later, my uncle came to pick me up in his car. I'm so sorry to trouble you like this, I said. It's okay. It's quite an unfortunate situation, he replied. Yes, they're headed to a luxury hotel in Palm Springs, I explained. My uncle tilted his head in thought, seeming to realize something. I think that's the case, I replied. I'm really sorry, but can you please take me there? I'll take the train back. Got it. The drive there is nice anyway. My uncle gladly accepted my request to go to Palm Springs. About an hour later, we arrived in Palm Springs. Luke and the others had arrived ahead of us. In front of us was a luxurious inn with a grand gate. It was a well-known hotel. The only luxury accommodation I knew of that costs $1,000 a night. At the reception, I was greeted with a smile by my mother. Lucy, it's been a while, she said, dressed elegantly and smiling gracefully. It was undeniably my mother. This inn has been run by my mother's family for many years, and she currently holds the position of the innkeeper. After becoming a single mother, she began working at this inn, so to me, this place feels like home. I had called my mother from the rest area and was surprised to hear that there was a reservation today from the group at Mitchell Securities. I had a suspicion when I heard they were going to a luxury hotel in Palm Springs, but I never imagined they would be coming to our very own inn. Of course, the family doesn't know that this inn is run by my mother. Still, what a terrible story. Lucy, you can't just let this slide, my uncle said. Yeah, I know. That's why I came here, I replied. Why don't we get you changed over here? He suggested. I prepared to greet them at the dinner table. An hour later, at 6:00 p.m., the in-law family gathered for dinner. I hid in the next room to remain unnoticed. I slightly opened the door to observe the inside. Luke and his family, thinking they were among themselves, were making some rather crude remarks. But when my mother appeared from the other side of the door and greeted them, the room went silent. Today, I will be in charge of serving you. Please let me know if you need anything, my mother said, bowing with perfect grace. There was a tangible tension amongst the family. However, when the food was served, they resumed their inappropriate discussions. For a while, both my mother and I did nothing, simply watching the plates empty before them. It's great that we all could come, We got rid of the bothersome daughter-in-law, and the food is delicious. Perfect, one of them said. Hearing her harsh words, my frustration boiled to an almost uncontrollable point. At that very moment, my mother entered the room with a dessert plate loaded with cake and fruit. Today, I've heard it's Miss Lucy's birthday and also her wedding anniversary with her husband. May I know where Miss Lucy is seated? My mother asked. In response to my mother's question about where to place the cake, the family looked at each other, confused. Nobody told you that? My mother asked. There was an awkward silence in the room, and the in-laws exchanged glances. In the end, the mother-in-law raised her hand. I am Lucy, she said. I was too embarrassed to mention it at this age, but thank you all for the surprise. Given that the only woman in the room was the mother-in-law, her reaction was appropriate. My mother gave a faint smile upon seeing her act. Hey, what's so funny? Is it strange to be surprised at my age? She asked. No, not at all. I wasn't thinking that, I reassured her. Then what? Just bring the cake already, the irate mother-in-law barked at her. My mother composed herself, and I swallowed hard. Lucy Mitchell is my daughter, my mother declared. Everyone present made a dumbfounded expression and raised their voices in shock. Seeing an opportunity, I swiftly opened the door from the adjacent room and stood next to my mother. Welcome. This innkeeper is my mother. It's a pleasure to meet you, I exclaimed. Lucy, why are you here? And what do you mean she's your mother? Luke asked in confusion. It means exactly that. This inn belongs to my family. I'd also intend to take over this place someday, I explained. Luke had never met my mother before, partly because she was busy with the inn, and partly because Luke and his parents insisted on not meeting her face to face. I had received a phone call from Luke for our wedding introduction, but he never met her in person. I showed my mother a picture of Luke and explained who he was. It was an unconventional introduction, but I believed my mother had accepted him. From your conversations earlier, could you please refrain from mocking and belittling my mother for being a single parent? I pleaded. We just stated the facts, Luke's mother defended. What's with the sudden drama? What grudge do you have against us? Luke questioned. Neither Luke nor his mother seemed to realize the extent of the disrespect they had shown me. Exasperated, I let out my anger that had been building up. If I have any grudges, it starts with you, Luke. I thought you were a good person when we got married, but it turns out you're a mama's boy. You married me, so you should prioritize me above all else, right? Don't join forces with your parents to mock me, I confronted him. Faced with my undeniable logic, Luke was rendered speechless. My mother just listened quietly to my outburst and to my in-laws. Why do you treat me this way? If you find me such a nuisance, I can leave the Mitchell family right now, I threatened. What? You'll become a lonely, poor single woman, Luke's mother sneered. It's okay. Actually, I'm pregnant, so I won't be lonely. And if I inherit this inn, I won't have any financial worries, I revealed. The truth is, I found out I was pregnant last week, and I hadn't told Luke yet. Only my mother knew, which is why she wasn't surprised. A child. What are you talking about? I haven't heard about this. Wait, Lucy, if that's the case, it changes things. You should have told us sooner, Luke said, trying to reason. Upon learning I was pregnant, the family immediately changed their tune, but I couldn't stand their fickle and unreasonable behavior any longer. No, my decision is final. Let's proceed with the divorce through lawyers. I will live happily with my child and my mother, I asserted. Saying this, I opened the door to the hall they were in and left. The door slammed shut with a sharp noise. I'm done with this. My child will be happier without that family, whether they try to change my mind or not, I declared. I received over 30 calls a day from Luke and his parents, but eventually I blocked all their numbers. A few days later, I received a letter from Luke informing me of our official divorce. The letter expressed his regret and pleaded for me to return, but I ignored it and tore it up. I thought he might neglect our child just like he prioritized his parents over me, and I absolutely didn't want that. Being alone and lonely would be his fate, not mine. Currently, I am nurturing my child in my womb and discussing future plans with my mother. Once the child is born and grows a bit, I plan to send them to daycare and join the inn's business. The path to becoming the next innkeeper is long, but I am determined to work hard to raise my child properly.